So I click the button. Usually I have a screen which shows me that it's trying to connect, but probably it's already connecting. Let me just want to make sure that everything works. Yes, everything works. Hello, Ellen. My apologies
Hi,
for
Ernest.
20 seconds delay, and thank you for coming. Let's talk it through show. And today's topic is productivity and self-care. And yeah, as usual, I would like just to tell you, if possible, literally a few words about yourself for people who are not familiar, just to have a quick introduction.
Yes, so by profession, I am a professional coach and counselor. But personally, I have a wife. I am a wife. I have one son who is 15 years old, and I'm staying here with my husband, my son, and also my parents. And in this lockdown, it's actually quite a blessing. We all stay together all the time.
Yeah. And yeah, thank you very much. And yeah, as you know, our conversations are, it's not really interview, it's more like a talk, more like a discussion. Because I would like, we as a coaches, we usually working in a little bit different format. It's all private, it's all focused on one person. We are asking questions, and yeah, we have a specific way of working. But I believe right now, in order to reach people, in order to help people, we need to shake the structure. And so as a result, we come up with that kind of talks about different topics. So tell me, please, why do you think productivity is the and self-care is like one of the important topics for us right now to discuss?
Well, I think first of all, because this situation requires us to produce either producing products or produce service in a very different way than we used to. And when we are facing changes and transition, most of the time, at least it is true in my case, that most of the time that being sacrificed in the first order is actually self-care. Time to rest, time to just relax. That is usually one of the first things to be sacrificed when we are trying to catch up with all the things that we think we need to produce. So balancing it is actually something that very dynamic, especially during this time of massive changes.
Totally agree. And what from my side, I could just add that, well, people started to work from home, and they usually do not have any, well-defined, I would say, routine how to do that. And at the same time, they do have certain particular duties and demands from their jobs, to complete and to fulfill their work as it usually is. And but suddenly they discover a lot of challenges, because to do the same thing but working from home, it's very different, the environment. And they need to, I totally agree, they need to find the new strategies and know how to do that properly, because working from home, it's very different from the usual way. And in our topic, by the way, you suggested that topic. So with our topic, you are connecting productivity and self-care as a one thing. Why is it?
Because from my experience, and I think I need to hear this as much as possible, being reminded all the time, because I guess as a high achiever and also people who aspire to provide excellence in whatever that we do, we tend to try to seek excellence at the cost of different things. And again, one of the first things that usually is sacrificed is self-care. Self-care included inside is rest time, included connecting time with family members and loved ones, connecting also with myself, being grounded and just to regroup again. That is usually one of the first things to be sacrificed. But actually, in fact, when I am able to just do good self-care, I'm actually most productive because, like you say, this new environment requires us to be more, to come up with different strategies that is not may not be the same as the previous one. And creativity requires a certain kind of mindset and brain situation and condition. And when I am tired, I am stressed, trying to catch up with all the to-do lists amongst, on top of that, tending for child who is schooling from home, caring for the meals that is now 3 times a day, usually not 3 times a day because everyone is out, but now it's 3 times a day, caring also for parents. It's so many things on top of that. And again, when I am actually being able to connect to myself, do good self-care, I can be more productive because I can be more creative in finding out new ways, or may not necessarily find out, but experiment with new ways to find out which one is actually most workable for the situation. And I
Yeah.
can be more at ease with experimenting because I come from that space of being grounded, not that desperation and fear that actually hinders creativity to find out new strategies that I can use to be more creative and productive.
Yep. I like it. I mean, thank you for sharing it. I mean, it's like resonate with me on a two different levels. First of all, number of years ago, I think more than 10 years ago, I come up with number of, like several books, which gives. I do remember like change of my mindset about productivity because there are a number of authors which propose for us to think about efficiency and productivity, or they call it time management in a different manner,
Mm,
in the manner of energy management. As soon as,
mm,
and for me, it does make sense because as a former scientist, physicist, I mean, we talked about energy a lot, and practically, everything is energy. And as a result, in order to be productive, you need to have a certain particular state. I mean, it's not about time. You could spend 6 hours trying to do one thing, and you could and still not able to do, or you could do in 1 hour much more than sometimes in a day. Why is that? I mean, and the key is probably in the energy field. I mean, if you're in
mm,
the right state, you are more productive. So the question is, what is that state? Well, the state where you are full of energy. How you get that energy? Well, you need to have a rest. I mean, that as a result, I remember in my mind, I was like, actually, resting, recreation, self care, and all those things, it's a part of being productive and part of being successful at your work. So, and sometimes working with the clients, I remember giving them some kind of almost like an analogy or metaphor. You're breathing in, you're breathing out. If you imagine that productivity, and when you pull your energy, kind of put your energy into something, you're breathing out. Can you breathe
mm.
out all the time? I mean, without breathing in, it somehow you don't try it, right? It's just impossible. So why people are trying it when they try to work as much as they can and they're stretching themselves? It's almost like trying to breathe out all the time.
Mhm.
It's just not gonna work. And yeah, it does make sense in many ways. So what is your strategy? If you could share, please, your personal, I don't know, challenges and personal, I would say, achievements in that area. What have you developed for yourself?
Okay, actually, this lockdown period is actually, I consider it as a blessing in disguise because it really forces me to look at how I do things. Previously, it's just routine, running around. But I consider now I'm not just running around, but I am moving forward because can, I have to look at the way I work in a different way. Somehow
Mhm.
I am being pushed into that zone of change that is previously it was not compulsory, but now I have no choice but change. So that what I call as blessing in disguise for this situation. And what I discovered is I cannot work the same way as I did before. So during these early weeks, the first 2 to 3 weeks of this lockdown is I am experimenting with different ways of doing things. There's some days that I experiment with making very tight schedule in a way that, okay, for tomorrow, I make it daily. Okay, from 8 to 9 a.m., this is what I'm going to do. And then 9 to 10, this is what I'm going to do. So make it a very structured schedule so that it's sort of, in my thinking, it helps me to create that structure so that I don't need to think whenever I have that free time, what am I supposed to do? So
Yeah.
by planning it, it takes off that thinking time by planning ahead. It works for some days, but then I come to a point that I feel uh, very sort of claustrophobic. I felt that I don't have the space to move, to follow my heart.
Yeah.
So I changed that again into, okay, so I think I'm going to try working based on, because now we have to sort of arrange the time when I can use my laptop, because I share it with my son because he has to do his schooling from home. So it's not like all the time available to me. Previously, it's like all the time because he's at school, and in the evening, the homework doesn't usually require laptops most of the time. So now it's like making arrangements. So what I try, or I got to experiment, is that probably I try on what works that require laptops and what works that I can use on just my mobile phone, and another work that I can do on my tablet. So I just cluster based on tools. Okay, from this hour to this hours, I'm going to do work that is related or can be done with phone. And from this hour to this hour, I'm going to do work that is related to laptop. So I'm not really very specific about the kind of work. I mean, is it reading or is it preparing what kind of content? But anything related to that tool is being clustered to that. It quite works because I felt that it gives me that space to become more creative and become more spontaneous in the way I want to use my time. Um, but again, at certain point, it's a sort of hit like a glass ceiling. I just felt that there's something missing in it. And I try again to experiment with clustering with the way I interact with people, because I have not factored that in. Okay, so this is the time that I'm going to work with gadgets, and this is the time where I'm going to contact people, because in my work I also need to coordinate and just contact people for different purposes. So I cluster it based on that. That's what I'm doing at the moment. But I am very open to one day says that sometimes this feels outdated, and experiment with another way. I think in my experience is that being open-minded about what strategies works best, not only based on external situation, but also based on my internal condition, is something that helps me become more productive. Because like you say, it needs a certain kind of brain condition, and when I feel not comfortable in my own skin, it sort of hinders me to become my best. That is,
Yeah.
of course, apart from the self-care part. When I include the self-care, is that I include, okay, this is the time that I'm going to take care of my body, meaning I'm going to move my body, I'm going to exercise. And I discover that when I do not plan it, it's sort of like goes with the wind. It's sort of like
Yeah.
being absorbed by all the things that I need to do. So what I discovered is that time is something that I have to plan in advance to be able to really be implemented. Because if not, it's just gone. And I can sense that when it's gone for several days, I'm starting to feel low. Like you say, I'm not really feel that I'm full of those creative juices anymore, whereby my work requires a lot of creativity and a lot of thinking. It's not something that is mechanical. So I make it a point to include that into my time schedule every day. And also to include just the relaxed moment, though may not be a lot, but um, probably just half an hour every day or every other day. I'm not being very demanding on myself, at least for the time. I mean, if I let go of one day because something urgent comes up, I'm not. I used to be very demanding on myself. But now I sort of tell myself to just let go. Everyone is not ready for this situation. Neither am I. And
Yeah.
things can go right and things can go wrong in days that come. So when things go wrong, it's just let go and accept it and just pick up from there and move forward. But so not keep being fixed on that, but keep moving forward. I think there's a saying from Galileo Galilei that I read. It it's in it's not in English, but in English it translates, yet it moves. Means
Hmm.
that whenever it keeps back, it get pushed backward, it still keep moving forward. So I guess from that, the principle that I learned for myself is there are going to be up and downs, but the most important thing is whether I keep moving forward to the direction. I think that the direction matters more than the speed for me. Because
Hmm.
if I pursue speed, there are times that I definitely get tired. But if I make sure that I stay on the right course, I definitely will get there. Yeah.
That's very nice. I mean, you thank you very much. You squeezed lots of interesting, I think precious pieces of the puzzle in one, yeah, in one kind of monologue, I would say. Yeah, what I picked up first of all is that uh, experimentation. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
try different things, and be open-minded and not as rigid, because circumstances are changed and it's gonna take, I don't know, creativity and time to figure it out, strategy. And maybe it will be multiple strategies, maybe not the only one. So I
Mm-hmm.
that's a really amazing thing. I totally on board with you. Second thing is what I picked up is in NLP, neurolinguistic programming, we call it sensory acuity, meaning, that it's almost like an airplane, which goes, I don't know, from let's say New York to London, and yeah, there is a direction, and obviously that airplane is not flying straight line. I mean, it could deviate a little bit, but how autopilot
Mm-hmm.
really works is that as soon as it's determined deviation, it actually get, it adjusting the route
Yeah.
in order to still get towards London, not towards São Paulo. Yeah. So the idea is that what you mentioned, sensory acuity, is like a check-in with yourself. Am I going? Do I feel like continuing? Is it gonna in the right direction? And those questions of checking with your internal guidance system. Is it the right thing to do? Because if it's not, well, change. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's really good. I like it very much. And again, patience. You said demanding and aiming for speed right now probably is not really uh, the best strategy either, because when you are finding new ways, speed is not a priority. The priority is,
Mm-hmm.
I would say, finding the right one and quality of that right one. And yeah, so you mentioned lots of interesting, powerful, I would say the mindset pieces, because it's all about attitude towards towards productivity and self-care. Okay, so how your family members are handling it? I mean, I'm just curious. You obviously, as a professional, you probably more aware what you are doing in terms of your psychological kind of adjustments. How your family members are adjusting?
I think they are adjusting quite okay. Okay, in the sense that they feel okay. I think that for me is the most important thing, because I try my best not to come from this position that I know this much, I am more enlightened, so you should do it my way, because I think it sort of it creates a lot of conflict when it's done. So my first priority is whether they feel okay in themselves. They may not do it the same way that I would do it necessarily, but as long as they feel okay, I think that's my first priority again. And I'm trying my best, not always successful, but try
Yeah.
my best to work with their pace rather than forcing them to come up to my space and pace and mindset. So it's like I think I consider it like a very dynamic situation whereby sometimes you go forward, sometimes I move backwards, and just again listening to myself, because I strongly believe that I know much more than I am aware of. So I may not be aware of many things, but actually inside there's this knowing that if I just quiet myself and just tune into this inner knowing, I believe that it will guide me. Because again, I
Yeah.
think I know much more than I am aware of. So I think what another highlight from this lockdown situation, I learned much more to listen to this inner knowing, because I guess slowing down enables me to do that kind of listening. Whereas previously, when I just like moving from one thing to another, there's no space to listen to this inner knowing.
Yep.
And I think this is a growth area that I experience very real in my life at this moment.
It could be. I agree with you totally, because that huge disruption of the personal routines. I mean, we could use it as a, I would say, like a wake up call. Wake up in terms of, in order to create new routines, you need to be much more aware. I mean, the whole spiritual development, it's in some ways it's like to become more aware, that consciousness growth or awareness growth. In my mind, at least, it's kind of associated practically with a spiritual practice. It's kind of, I don't know, it's maybe funny to say it, but the whole situation of, crisis, at least one of the sides, apart from terrible things and, not comfortable things, but one of the sides which I see, that personal routines are suddenly interrupted, destroyed, and potentially it's a wake up call for us to create new ones. And when you create new ones, it require much higher awareness and require lots of energy. And that's where self-care becomes so much more important. You cannot run on the autopilot, as me and you probably used to. In the morning, just stand up and run according to your plan, in meetings. And yeah, now everything is different. So to create new routines require lots of energy. Where we could get that energy? Well, I mean, you need to self-care, and time for that become even more important than before. I mean, for me personally, because I cannot. 2 years ago I started to run regular and like a long runs, like almost like a half marathons, regular. Here I cannot do it, obviously, so I changed to just a 15 minutes, qigong. Uh,
Mm.
I go into on the balcony just to be a little bit outside of apartment. Fortunately, we do have balcony, and in the morning, the first thing I do, it's like a 10-15 minutes, very very gentle wake up kind of energy qigong, some sequence of simple, Chinese kind of energy practice, and do it every day. So that is my new kind of routine in order to, get my energy back and get it as early as possible, so to prepare for the day. Of course, everybody's routine could be different and exercises could be different. Someone can do yoga. It doesn't matter, whatever you find for yourself, but it is a time for new strategies and for higher awareness and more patience. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I find that when I make time to again connect to my inner knowing, that is part of my own self-care. Because when I connect, it's sort of like I draw again to me whatever that has been scattered and just sort of crystallize it into one kind of insight, what I'm thinking of about this, being very reflective about things. So connecting to my inner knowing, that time that I dedicate to connecting to my inner knowing is actually becoming my one of my self-care time, that I gain energy from it to be able to, again, like you say, breathe out. So that is breathing in for me, connecting.
Yeah.
And
How
also,
do how exactly do you do that? Is it kind of special time, special place? What exactly do you do? Some kind of meditation, or can you share, please?
Sure. Yeah. So at this moment, at least, previous weeks, I tend to plan it into a very rigid schedule, like I shared earlier. But now, what I'm doing is I listen. I try to listen more to myself, to sense more from myself, being aware more of myself. When I sense that I think I need some top up, then I make time for that. Usually what I do is just sit down, read something. Reading is a good prompt for me. When I say prompt, because honestly, I use it as a prompt whereby I can think about whatever is related to that reading that it can brings me to another chain of thoughts.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
usually what happens is I read, but I may not necessarily digest a lot on what I read, but use it as a prompt to just reflect on things. And also, funnily, exercise time also become a time for that because what I exercise is I do treadmill at my home. So it's a very repetitive action. You know, you
Yeah,
just keep walking
yeah.
on the tool,
Aerobic.
and
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, so it doesn't requires a lot of mind work. So that becomes also a time for me for that purpose. And for the prompt, I cannot read definitely because of that. So I use the audio prompt. I usually either listen to YouTube or I listen to audiobook. Then again, I use it as a prompt to think of things and just reflect on the things that have been happening, things that I'm thinking about, to just again connect back to my inner knowing.
Very good. Very good. It's very kind of resonate with me as well because yeah, one of our former kind of communist leaders, they one yeah, we have Lenin, kind of one of the guys who started the Russian Revolution, and I remember one of his saying is that he said, "For me, the best rest is the change of activity." I mean, and
Mm,
somehow, yeah, I have that proverb, not proverb, but his saying, kind of remembering, and very often repeat for myself. Yeah, actually, resting, it's not like, oh, now I do nothing. Well, even if I used to meditate actually for more or less like a half an hour or 20 25 minutes per day, but a long time ago I switched to the simple um, different routine. I'm trying to meditate, or just use any minute during a day just to come down and check with myself, like to have some kind
mm,
of internal check, like not thinking for a minute. And several years ago, I come across a book. It's called 1 Minute Meditation. I like it a lot
oh,
because you don't need to have special time. You don't need to have, it's almost like an instant recharger. Anytime, if I have 1 minute, it's enough. I just get myself kind of in and pay attention to the breathing, to relaxation, how I stand. And 1 minute of that kind of very instant recharge is very much enough. So maybe
mm,
it's not a deep meditation, but some kind of instant recharge. And the change of activity, that's a real, because I noticed that I'm kind of getting tired when I do one thing, and because of the focus, yeah, intensity. And as soon as I switch to something else, as you said, listening to some, audio podcast or reading some book, and that change of focus, after a while, I feel like, actually, I'm not as tired anymore. Uh, but it doesn't mean I didn't do anything. I just did different things, and that
mm.
refocus helps energy kind of to release and flow. Awesome. Thank you very much, Ellen. Tell me, please, what would you
Welcome.
tell people, to almost like a, not a summary, but almost like advice, or the final statement before we wrap up our conversation?
I think from this one thread that comes up to me is that be open to experimentation. Experimentation in terms of how do I do my self-care, what works for me, and also experimentation in terms of how do I manage my time and my energy again to be able to be more productive and to just go with the flow of what works and willing to let go of what does not work.
Nice. Nice, simple and powerful. Ellen, thanks a lot again for coming to
Welcome.
the talk. and looking forward to have you with us again in a week. I think next week, practically, we already planned some other talk. So see you soon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Alex, for having me.
Thank you.
Okay.